After the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, there arose a flurry of anti-Japanese sentiment throughout the U.S. 74 days later, President Franklin Roosevelt issued an executive order which resulted in Japanese men, women, and children in the West Coast U.S. being incarcerated in remote spots of the country for years. From the perspective of the U.S. government, this was done officially as a security measure to prevent potential sabotage or espionage during the war. However, this incarceration was done without review, hearing, and without evidence. Based purely on ancestral heritage, 120,000 Japanese immigrant aliens and non-aliens, meaning American citizens, were sent to one of 10 camps. The other branches of government endorsed the order. The U.S. Congress passed laws and appropriated money to support the action without even a single dissenting vote. Later, 3 Supreme Court cases upheld the order as constitutional, despite the obvious clashes with the Bill of Rights. In 2 further inconsistencies, the 150,000 Japanese living on Hawaii were not affected by the act, and the military extended the draft to Japanese who were incarcerated for their supposed untrustworthiness.
The vast majority of the American people supported the executive order. Some estimates show that as much as 90% of the population wanted to move Japanese American immigrants and citizens away from the West Coast. This was most likely due to wartime hysteria, fear of future attacks, and previously existing racial tensions. Some people also profited off the situation by buying land and assets that their Japanese neighbors were forced to sell quickly as their families were moved into internment camps. As the war progressed, support for the Japanese internment began to decline. Some people living in neighboring communities began to notice the terrible living conditions of the camps. Many people began to donate supplies such as blankets, food, and electrical equipment to improve the situation. To the relief of citizens inside and outside the camps, the Japanese internment was officially over on March 20th, 1946, with the closure of the final camp.
It can be easy to ignore the persecution of a minority group, unless of course you are the minority. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor and subsequent executive order of President Roosevelt, Japanese in the United States were forced to uproot their lives. Yoshiko Uchida, one of those affected, shares his feelings about the experience, saying, "Deprived of our constitutional rights as well as our privacy and our dignity as human beings, we were guilty of nothing more than that we resembled the enemy in Japan." Once in the camps, the Japanese made the best of bleak circumstances. After writing that people in the camps were already sick, a child's diary reads, "We shall save rubber, money, spiders, paper, and lots of other things to help Uncle Sam." Those who were struggling the most gave up things they had for the cause of the freedom of their nation. This story teaches us an important lesson. Can you think of a belief you might have or a comfort you enjoy that causes you to turn a blind eye to the circumstances of another? How might this narrative change your perspective?